Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, a gentle place of rest where you can let your worries drift away. In this moment, you are invited to settle in, close your eyes, and become aware of the softness beneath you. Feel the subtle weight of your eyelids and the warmth that starts to spread through your limbs. There is nothing you need to do right now except breathe. Each breath brings you closer to a serene realm of calm. In tonight's journey, you'll be taken to the misty, rain-kissed monasteries of Meteora in Greece, where ancient stones rise above swirling clouds and the cool hush of twilight cloaks every silent corridor. You might picture yourself there, lulled by the rhythmic sound of raindrops against worn steps, lulled by the gentle hum of centuries past. With each exhale, release tension from your body, trusting that here, in this moment of deep relaxation, all is well. It can help to notice how even the smallest movements, like the soft flutter of your breath against your nose, ground you in comfort. Perhaps you feel your chest rising and falling gently, or you sense a mild tingling in your toes as you allow them to rest. Take another breath, nice and slow, savoring the cool air. As you exhale, let go of the day's cares, like leaves floating down a quiet stream. You are wrapped in a gentle sense of peace. There is no pressure here, no expectation. Just a tender invitation to dissolve into tranquility. With the next few breaths, feel the steady beat of your heart, aligning with a deeper rhythm, a soft, ancient cadence that echoes through the centuries. If your mind feels busy, gently guide it back to the soothing flow of breath. Let the hush of the night envelop you. Let the edges of tension blur and fade. Soon you will begin a story of distant stones, cloaked in mist, of soft rains drifting through hidden valleys. But for now, let yourself sink further into calm. Feel the serenity envelop your entire being. Long ago, in a land of towering rock pillars and endless sky, a young traveler named Lysandra quietly made her way along a winding path. She carried a small pouch with a few belongings, and though her heart beat with anticipation, she walked slowly. Around her, the evening air shimmered with the promise of rain, and low-hanging clouds dimmed the horizon. Meteora was a place she had only heard of in whispered stories. Rocky spires rising from rolling plains, crowned with ancient monasteries perched at near impossible heights. Now, at last, she was here, and she felt drawn to the mysteries that these centuries-old sanctuaries might reveal. Gray stones surrounded her, cool to the touch and polished by countless footsteps of pilgrims, monks, and visitors from all walks of life. The first soft drops of rain began to fall, tapping gently against the wide leaves of trees and the dusty ground beneath her feet. Lysandra paused under a crooked olive tree to watch the shifting mist swirl around the base of the cliffs. She noticed how each raindrop sparkled as it caught a fleeting beam of twilight. With a quiet determination, she moved forward, placing each footstep in time with her measured, calming breaths. The path sloped upward, weaving around bulging rock faces that seemed to carry of the past. In the distance, half hidden by rolling fog, she glimpsed the outline of a monastery. Its ancient walls stood steadfast and strong, a testament to something deeper than stone, perhaps faith, or perhaps a gentle hush that had existed for ages. Although the climb was steep, there was no rush, no urgency. The hush of impending nightfall slowed everything down. Lysandra listened to the dripping water trickling off mossy ledges and drifting into crevices below. She sensed the quiet presence of centuries in the faint echoes that resonated between the rocks. Each step brought her closer to the heart of Meteora, where the wind whispered around corners, carrying the faint aroma of damp earth and fresh pine. And though she traveled alone, it was not loneliness she felt, but rather a comforting sense of belonging. It was as if the stones themselves recognized her tread. By the time Lysandra reached the foot of the monastery's grand stairs, darkness had settled upon the land. Stars flickered through patches in the clouds, and the rain had grown from a gentle patter to a steady, soothing shower. Lanterns glowed warmly along the outer walls, illuminating droplets that cascaded from the roof's edges. Stone steps led up to an imposing wooden door, reinforced with iron bands. As she ascended, she felt each worn groove in the stone beneath her shoes, each step shaped by centuries of pilgrims who had climbed before her. Within the thick walls, the monastery exuded a gentle aura of serenity. The building itself, though simple in design, spoke volumes through every carved archway and weathered fresco. Candlelight glimmered through narrow windows, dancing across cold stone corridors. Soft shadows played along the walls, flickering in time with the crackling wicks. And in that dance of light and shadow, it was easy to believe that the centuries had folded in on themselves here, weaving the fabric of the monastery's peaceful present with echoes of its storied past. The abbot, dressed in a dark robe, greeted Lysandra with a measured bow. He spoke only a few words, welcoming her. His voice was calm, and his eyes, though solemn, held a warm depth that set her at ease. He offered her a simple cot in a quiet chamber and beckoned her to follow him. As they walked, her footsteps resonated in the corridor, mingling with the soft hiss of the rain and the steady drip of water trickling through small stone channels built to guide the rainfall away from the courtyard. Even within these walls, she could feel the subtle vibration of distant thunder rolling through the valley below, as if the very heart of Meteora was quietly beating with the pulse of the night. Once Lysandra settled into her small chamber, she took a moment to observe the surroundings. A single window opened out to a vast expanse of fog-shrouded darkness. Beyond it, she imagined the tall spires and the wild landscape of Meteora, hidden now behind the veil of night. A wooden desk stood in one corner, and on it rested an unlit oil lamp. The walls were bare, save for a simple tapestry depicting the swirling shapes of clouds and hills, an image that resonated with the environment she now inhabited. The air smelled faintly of beeswax and ancient timber, The hush in her room was so complete that she could hear the gentle pattering of the rain on the roof above, a lulling rhythm that called her to rest. Yet her mind drifted back to the path she had taken, to the swirling gray mist that had guided her. She remembered how it had seemed to breathe, shifting and stirring around her ankles. Something about that memory brought a soft smile to her face. She was safe now, sheltered, with only the melody of gentle rain and the faint promise of morning light to keep her company. Sleep beckoned, but she felt compelled to wander the corridors just a little to see what quiet wonders might be found in the old stones of the monastery. Tiptoeing through the hallway, she noticed a series of tapestries depicting robed figures carrying lanterns through a foggy landscape. Their eyes were downcast, as though engaged in some silent introspection. At the end of the corridor, a single candle burned in a small alcove, illuminating an old wooden cross. The flame's steady glow seemed to reach out into the darkness, casting a circle of warmth. Lysandra paused here, letting the tranquility of the scene envelop her. No words were needed. The stillness was its own soft welcome. When the first faint glow of dawn gently touched the sky, Lysandra stirred in her cot. She rose quietly, hoping not to disturb the hush that still lay over the monastery. Rain had continued through the night, and though it had softened to a mere drizzle, the air still carried the fresh scent of wet stone and damp earth. Carefully, she pushed open the heavy wooden door and stepped outside into the courtyard. The courtyard was a wide cobblestone space framed by walls of worn stone with a single olive tree standing in the center. Raindrops clung to the leaves, glittering in the early light like tiny crystals. A trio of sparrows fluttered beneath the eaves, shaking off droplets from their feathers. Lysandra watched them for a moment, sensing a kinship in their delicate morning routine. The monastery was stirring to life. From behind a half-open door, she could hear the low murmur of prayer. Subtle movements of robed figures glided across a far corridor. There were no loud calls or bustling footsteps, only gentle swishes of fabric and hushed voices echoing in the stillness. It felt as though the entire place, though it existed on a different rhythm, unhurried and deeply connected to the rise and fall of the sun. She wandered toward a vantage point at the monastery's edge, where a small terrace overlooked the vast landscape below. The drizzle had formed a delicate veil around the towering rock formations, so that they rose like silhouettes out of the mist. The sight took her breath away. Steep, weathered cliffs jutted up from the earth, each crowned by a monastery or a patch of green. It was a realm suspended between clouds and land. She could see why the faithful had chosen this place for prayer and contemplation. Something about it, perhaps the unyielding rock or the swirling fog, seemed to speak of eternity, of time beyond time. Over the next few days, Lysandra settled into a gentle routine. She woke early to the soft toll of a monastery bell that resonated through the corridors like a distant, comforting hum. At dawn, she joined the monks for a simple breakfast of bread and honey. While they ate in silence, the hush was not empty but filled with a quiet sense of unity, as though they were sharing in a moment of profound understanding. Afterwards, she would wander the monastery grounds, exploring ancient halls that led to hidden chapels and small courtyards. Each corner revealed stories etched into stone or painted into frescoes that told tales of devotion and perseverance. Rain remained a constant companion. Sometimes it came in strong bursts, resonating loudly on the ancient roofs. Other times it trickled down in a gentle drizzle, barely audible, except for the occasional drip from a window ledge. This rain became a friend, wrapping the monastery in soft illusions of swirling mist. Whenever Lysandra stood in one of the arched doorways to watch the downpour, she felt a soothing sense of being cocooned from the wider world. From inside those walls, the pitter-patter was a lullaby, reminding her of the protective arms of the sky. It was on one such rainy afternoon that she caught sight of another traveler, a quiet older woman named Amara, who also appeared to be exploring the corridors. They exchanged gentle smiles, but spoke only a few words. At first, it seemed that both of them preferred the silent companionship of the stone walls, but over the slow hours that followed, they found themselves pausing in the same chambers and alcoves, quietly sharing a sense of wonder. In the flickering light of ancient lamps, they marveled at the delicacy of centuries-old mosaics and paused in reverence before humble altars where a single candle flame burned against the darkness. Eventually, Lysandra and Amara began to talk, their soft voices echoing gently against the ancient walls. They shared simple stories about their journeys. Amara had come seeking solace and reflection, carrying with her the memories of a life filled with both joys and sorrows. She spoke of how the hush of Meteora appealed to something deep in her spirit, how the lofty spires seemed to call her to remember a broader perspective. Lysandra, in turn, shared that she'd been drawn here not by any dramatic hardship, but by a subtle restlessness she couldn't quite name. She felt that the world often rushed her along, filling her days with noise and haste. Here in this quiet sanctuary above the clouds, time seemed to stretch and slow, as though the mere act of observation was an act of reverence. Together they ventured out onto winding mountain trails whenever the rain paused. Their path took them through hidden groves of cypress and oak, where droplets clung to leaves and glinted in the filtered sunlight. At times the mist would roll in soft and cool, enveloping them so thoroughly that the path ahead vanished, leaving only the outline of a solitary stone marker. In these moments they stood still, waiting for the swirling fog to thin. There was no fear in that uncertainty, only a calm acceptance that nature would reveal the way in due time. In the afternoons, the two would return to the monastery. Often they found themselves in a small library chamber lined with centuries-old manuscripts, Illuminated by the warm glow of a single lamp, the pages revealed faded ink drawings of landscapes, prayers, and careful notes detailing monastic life. Amara, who had traveled widely, told Lysandra that such places, cloistered high above the ground, had a way of preserving knowledge and wisdom through the ages. As the rain softly pattered against the thick walls, the two women let themselves be guided by a spirit of gentle curiosity, leafing through parchment that had once been held by hands long turned to dust. Here, in the hush of old pages and the lull of rainfall, they felt connected not just to the stories themselves, but to the countless souls who had also turned these pages, searching for insight or solace. One cool, drizzly evening, a monk named Brother Nicholas invited Lysandra and Amara to attend a small service in the monastery's main chapel. The chapel, dug partially into the rock itself, had a vaulted ceiling adorned with faded frescoes of celestial scenes. Soft candlelight illuminated the modest gathering. There were only a handful of monks present, and their chanting filled the space with waves of harmony. The ancient Greek words resonated deep in the stone, creating a cocoon of sound that seemed to encircle each individual. Even without understanding every phrase, Lysandra could feel the reverence in the melody and in the measured pace of each syllable. As the chanting rose and fell, she closed her eyes, letting the sound wash over her. The smell of incense mingled with the moist air, drifting in thin spirals toward the ceiling. Somewhere outside, gentle rainfall persisted, providing a softly percussive backdrop to the monk's hymn. Her mind drifted, floating among the echoes that bounced off the chapel's walls. She imagined the countless souls who, over centuries, had come here to find solace or to simply stand in awe of the quiet majesty of these towering rocks. That sense of shared devotion, be it to faith, mystery, or the beauty of this lofty place, wove through time, linking all who had ever paused here to listen. When the chanting ended, there was a silence so profound that Lysandra hesitated, even to shift her weight for fear of disturbing it. The small group remained still, letting the resonance fade slowly. Brother Nicholas nodded quietly, a serene smile on his face, as though acknowledging that something precious had been offered, something unspoken, yet deeply meaningful. When at last she and Amara emerged into the corridor again, Lysandra noticed that her heart felt lighter, her steps softer, as though the hush of that chanting had seeped into her very being. In the nights that followed, the rain continued its gentle vigil. Sometimes Lysandra would lie awake, listening to the soft drumming on the roof and the muffled rumble of distant thunder. Other times she walked along a corridor by lantern light, pausing to look out at the dark shapes of the rock pillars that vanished into the mist below. One particular night she found herself by a small window overlooking a narrow gorge. The sky was a tapestry of heavy clouds and faint starlight, and the wind carried the scent of damp moss. She rested her chin on the windowsill and breathed in the quiet, feeling a steady calm settle in her chest. Moonlight broke through a gap in the clouds, illuminating a far-off monastery perched on a separate pillar of rock. Its silhouette was haloed by the pearly glow. She imagined the monks within, kneeling in prayer, or perhaps reading by lamplight. The sense of distance between these stone sentinels was vast, yet it felt intimate, as though each monastery were an island of warmth in a sea of mist. The image reminded Lysandra of how precious each point of light can be, how a single lantern in the dark can banish shadows and guide weary travelers home. Eventually, drowsiness wrapped itself around her like a warm quilt. She returned to her small chamber and sank onto the cot, pulling a woolen blanket over her shoulders. Drifting into sleep, she carried with her the lingering hush of the chapel, the echoes of chanting, and the comforting lull of the endless rain. One morning, with the storms tapering off to a gentle, lingering drizzle, Lysandra, Amara, and Brother Nicholas decided to visit another monastery perched on a neighboring pillar. A centuries-old footbridge spanned the chasm between the two rock towers. The sound of water dripping from the wooden planks echoed in the gulf below, where thick clouds hid the valley floor from view. Each step across the bridge felt like treading through a dreamscape. Above them loomed swirling gray clouds, and beneath lay an unseen world blanketed by mist. Only the steady click of the monks' prayer beads and the trickle of water broke the stillness. Upon reaching the other side, they were greeted by carved doors that bore the symbols of saints and angels. The building beyond was smaller than the first monastery, but just as steeped in history. Damp vines clung to the stone, and small puddles shimmered in the courtyard. Inside, the monastery was hushed, lit by shafts of pale daylight that filtered through narrow windows. Faded murals covered the walls, depicting biblical figures set against ancient Greek landscapes. Brother Nicholas explained some of the history in a measured voice, pointing out how the art styles had shifted through various centuries. Lysandra and Amara listened quietly, their senses immersed in the slow unraveling of time's tapestry. A gentle fragrance of rosemary and thyme drifted from the monastery's tiny garden, where modest herbs grew in terracotta pots. Raindrops clung to the leaves, as though the plants themselves were festooned with tiny jewels. Now and then, a monk or two would pass by, offering a polite bow before continuing on their tasks. There was an unspoken harmony in the way they moved, as if each motion was a prayer in action, a reflection of the calm and reverent spirit that had shaped this place across ages. As the day wore on, Lysandra found her mind wandering back to thoughts of her own life beyond these hallowed walls. She realized how much this slow pace of existence had nourished her soul. The hush of rainfall, the swirl of clouds around the rock towers, the gentle chanting, all of it allowed her to reconnect with a deeper, simpler sense of being. She realized that rest was not merely the absence of activity, but an invitation to listen to the quieter aspects of life. the flutter of a bird's wings, the rustle of robes passing through a corridor, the echo of raindrops in an ancient courtyard. Amara confessed similar reflections. She spoke softly about how the modern world could feel fragmented, pulling the mind in too many directions at once. Here, the rhythm was unified. The day began with the chime of a bell, meandered through shared meals and moments of devotion, and concluded with the tender lull of nightfall. There was a restful simplicity in that flow. Brother Nicholas, listening to their thoughts, merely smiled. He reminded them that true peace was not bound to a specific place, though Meteora was indeed special. Rather, it lived within one's heart, waiting to be recognized in the hush between breaths. That evening, the three sat in a corner of the main courtyard to watch the dusk descend. Candles flickered in small lanterns placed along the walls, and the last glow of daylight lingered in bands of lavender and pale gold. On the horizon, rain clouds drifted in the distance, glowing softly from within as the remaining sunlight illuminated their edges. A mild breeze carried the songs of distant birds settling for the night. For a time they sat without speaking, simply absorbing the tranquil metamorphosis of day into evening. In that serene twilight, it felt as though the entire world was exhaling, surrendering to the gentle embrace of night. With the deepening twilight came a sense of closure to Lysandra's journey. She understood that soon she would depart, returning to the lands below, where busy roads and crowded markets awaited. Yet there was no sadness in her heart. She felt as though Meteora had imparted a soft imprint on her soul, a reminder that amidst the most hurried days, a space of stillness always existed within her. As she strolled through the monastery halls, one last time, she took in every detail: the smooth stone steps, the gentle flicker of lanterns against the walls, the faint smell of incense that permeated the air. She paused at the small chapel, listening briefly for the echo of chanting that now lived in her memory. All around her, the gentle pitter-patter of drizzle marked the passage of seconds like a tender lullaby. In her chamber, she collected the few belongings she had: a travel cloak, a journal, and memories etched into her heart. Amara, too, prepared to leave, her own spirit enriched by the days spent in hushed communion with rock and rain. Brother Nicholas and a few of the other monks gathered by the main gate to bid them farewell. They offered blessings in quiet voices, and Lysandra couldn't help but feel a soft warmth in her chest at the profound kindness these monastics showed to strangers who came from distant roads. The morning sky was layered with drifting clouds when Lysandra and Amara finally began their descent. Mist hung thick around the towering pillars, and the worn path glistened with fresh rain. Step by careful step, they made their way down the winding trail. Meteora's grand spires gradually receded behind them, like tall guardians withdrawing into the fog. Still, the memory of those heights, the hush of those halls, accompanied them as they journeyed on. Word of their experiences in Meteora would spread quietly, carried in the hush of their voices when they spoke to friends or family back home. Perhaps they would recount the weightless feeling of walking on stone bridges above the clouds, or describe the warmth of a simple meal shared in silence, candlelight dancing on the walls. Perhaps they would recall the gentle glow of lanterns in mist-shrouded courtyards, or the soft resonance of chanting that seemed to blend seamlessly with the patter of rain. Over the years, these memories would become part of each traveler's own personal landscape, a reservoir of calm they could revisit in times of noise or stress. And Meteora itself would remain as it had for centuries, its monasteries perched on colossal pillars, its corridors echoing with ancient prayers, and its stones worn smooth by the faithful steps of countless pilgrims. The rain would continue to wash over the rock formations, shaping them imperceptibly over time, while clouds swirled and drifted around the heights like wisps of a dream clinging to reality. In that high realm, the boundary between earth and sky felt thin, as though one could slip seamlessly from the rugged world of stone into the ethereal domain of light and air. The story of Lysandra and the monasteries in Meteora continues in the hush of memory, softly guiding anyone who recalls it to a place of calm reflection. Even now, if you allow your mind to wander through that misty landscape, you might feel the cool droplets of rain against your skin, hear the echo of footsteps in quiet corridors, and glimpse the warm, welcoming glow of lantern light through ancient arches. Each time you summon this vision, you awaken that quiet corner of yourself where peace resides. Now let the lingering echoes of these monastic halls settle gently in your thoughts. Imagine the smooth stone underfoot, the rain-washed air, and the drifting shroud of mist that softens the edges of the towering cliffs. Let your breath slow, mirroring the steady rhythm of distant church bells. Inhale that tranquil stillness and exhale any lingering tension. Here, in the quiet aftermath of the story, you find a soothing emptiness, a space where mind and body can rest. Allow yourself to drift deeper into that restful state now, as if you are stepping away from the day's concerns. Notice the subtle warmth that cradles your body. The hush of the night unfolds around you like a protective cloak. In the dim glow of imagination, you can picture yourself standing in one of Meteora's hidden courtyards, feeling the soft mist on your face, the gentle weight of the air against your eyelids. Everything is peaceful, suspended in timeless calm. Let each breath be a lullaby. Let each soft beat of your heart align with the hush of the ancient stones. If thoughts wander, that's perfectly fine. Kindly guide them back to the slow rise and fall of your chest. The path to sleep is lined with welcoming shadows, leading you toward a realm of complete rest. There is no urgency. Let go of all effort, all expectation. In the gentle darkness, you are free to surrender to the soothing embrace of slumber. And as the story gently fades, you remain in a place of quiet safety, lulled by the memory of misty monasteries and the comforting cadence of the rain. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.